Hello, hello, everybody. Beautiful, beautiful day today. And I'm glad to be with you. I'm glad that you're listening because, well, it's a wonderful day. Why? Because I said it is. You want to fight? Um, I want to share something with you today. It's based on a conversation that I had earlier this morning. As you know, the focus here on this program is about how we become more tactical, how we become more proactive, how we become more elite at living life, right? Part of that is your relationship with your business, part of that is your relationship with yourself, and part of that is relationship with your family. And we kind of bounce back and forth between these three things. But I want you to know that there's a common theme amongst all of these. And I'm going to show you that common theme. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a story. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some tips, if you will, that you can use. Right? But the third and the most important thing is I want you to be able to relate this back to you in your life, wherever it is that you are right now. And understand that regardless of whether you're starting off as an entrepreneur, regardless of whether you've been in the hustle and grind mode for the last 5 years, regardless of whether you're already successful and you're trying to figure out what that next stage looks like, you're going to be dealing with these. It doesn't matter. A lot of times we think that no one understands what we're going through, that it is simply our problem that we have to deal with right now, and no one understands it. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Let me share something with you. So earlier today, I was talking with a friend of mine. And I call him a friend, but he's also a business partner. We do a lot of things together. Now, I will tell you, I won't tell you his name, but I will tell you that he's built a couple of companies that have been doing in excess of $30 million a year in revenue. That's right, million with an M. $30 million a year in revenue. He's very successful in what he does. He's very elite at what he does and how he does it. But he is just like you and I. How do I know this? Based on the conversation this morning. He calls me up this morning and he starts talking about this great weekend that he had. He was out with a few friends of his, and not to give away what exactly they were doing, but they spent some time away doing an extracurricular activity, we'll call it, that they really enjoy doing together. And as he's going through this session, if you will, I'll narrow it down. It was surfing, right? And as they're going through this session of surfing, any of you guys who've ever surfed, you understand this. I've never surfed, but I understand the mindset behind it. He's trying to catch some waves, and he couldn't catch any waves. He kept trying to get up on his board and crashing and crashing and crashing into the waves over and over and over again. And finally, this other friend of his pulled him aside and said, "Hey, listen, what's going on right now? You're stuck in your own head." And he gave him some advice. He said, "Go put your phone away and go focus on what you need to focus on right now," which is nothing more than catching these waves. And so he went and he put his phone away. Now, mind you, this is a man who's created multiple $30 million companies. His phone in his mind was his lifeline. And so he got stuck in this, I need to have my phone with me phase. It took him, not that day, but through till the next day before he was finally able to disconnect. And what do you think happened once he disconnected? He started catching waves, wave upon wave upon wave upon wave. And this experience that at the beginning had been so negative, at the beginning had been so difficult for him, became a positive one. Now, what happened? What was the difference? His skill set didn't improve at all. I mean, from one day to the next, he's going to have the same skills to get on a surfboard and catch a wave. That's not going to change. So what is it that changed? What changed was his mindset. And I've said this before, and I'll continue to repeat it. The biggest problem you will ever have is you. Hence, the biggest solution you'll ever have is you. It's crazy to think about it this way, but I invite you to consider that as you start to understand this and as you start to apply this to your life, things will change. It always starts with you. It doesn't start with your business. It doesn't start with your customers. It doesn't start with your wife. It doesn't start with your kids. It always starts with you. And to hear him talk about this experience from beginning to end was almost eye-opening for me, because I realized, or I should say I was reminded again, that it doesn't matter where it is that you are in life. Whether you're starting off, whether you're in the middle of hustle and grind mode, or whether you've already reached the epitome of what other people would consider success, you're still going to struggle with these things. So I want to give you 7 things that you need to think about when it comes to mindset, when it comes to where it is that you are right now. Now, here's the interesting part. If you've gone to a Tony Robbins event, you've heard him speak, or any of these motivational guys, they talk a lot about this mindset, right? They call it self-talk. How is it that you're talking to yourself? And the way that you talk to yourself will either build your mental strength or it will take away from it. Thinking that I will never get this customer or I will never be able to complete this project. Where do you think that's leading you? It's leading you down the path of you're not going to be able to do it. See, the harshest critic you'll ever have is yourself. But you're not alone. Now, here are some exercises I want you to pay attention to. These 7 things that you can do. Number 1, and this is the most important, is pay attention to your thoughts. Pay attention to your thoughts. I've talked about this before numerous times, is that in life, in order to succeed, you have to become more proactive than reactive. What does that mean? That means you're setting yourself up for success. And when we're talking about our mind and the way that we think and talk to ourselves, we have to understand that, hey, the way I talk to myself, if I don't control it, what happens? It will control me. So when you wake up in the morning, what is it that you're doing every single morning to put your mind in that positive place? See, every single day, you're going to have around 60,000 thoughts. Think about that for a minute. 60,000 thoughts. While I'm talking to you right now, you probably have 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't know, maybe 10. 60,000 thoughts. That's 60,000 chances that you have to either build yourself up or tear yourself down. If you recognize the pattern that you're putting yourself in, you can start to shift that. So in the morning, practice self-talk, positive self-talk. Look at what's going to happen that day or that week and tell yourself how it is that you're going to overcome that or how it is that you're going to complete that. And watch what happens to your mind. Watch what happens to your actions based on, that's right, what it is that you're thinking. Number 2, change the channel. I remember when I was young, my mother, of course, being the protective mother that she was, she didn't want us to watch any TV shows or movies that were inappropriate. Too many curse words or sexual instances, so on and so forth. And so she would have the remote control in her hand, and as soon as something even questionable came on, what would she do? Change the channel. Fast forward. Stop. Whatever it was, she had the control in her hand, and she would control it. It's the same thing with you. Problem solving is helpful, but sitting in that negativity is destructive. When you keep replaying your mistakes over and over and over again, what happens? You start to drag yourself down. So the best way you can do that is change the channel. Now, how do we change the channel in our mind? You have to find an activity that is going to force your mind to focus on something else. Now, this may be a physical activity. You may do 10 burpees. I don't know. You may start doing some push-ups. You may go for a lap around the building, where it is at your work or your office. It could be calling a friend, going for a walk, or it could be jumping on YouTube and finding something positive to listen to. There's a litany of different ways that you can do this, but what you have to understand is you have to change the channel. You can't stay in that negative state. It will destroy you. Number 3, I've talked about this before, but I want to make sure that you understand this. You have to examine the evidence. As you know, I was a police officer for 15 years. What convicted people in court was not feelings. It was facts. So why is it that we focus so much of our lives on the way we feel versus the facts? See, when we start to examine what's really true and what isn't, our mind will shift. We over-exaggerate the negative feelings. Naturally, this is what we do. So it's important that instead of telling yourself, I'm listening to my feelings right now, take a second, call time out, and go back and start listening or looking at the facts. Let's say you're going to give a big presentation in front of a group of peers or a group of potential clients. Initially, your mind is going to tell you what? I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm going to stumble over my words. I'm going to embarrass myself. Take a minute and write down all the reasons why it is that you're going to succeed based on the facts. I'm an expert in this area. I've rehearsed what it is that I'm going to say. I feel confident and know that my product is better than the competition's, so on and so forth. And now you're reminding yourself of the facts behind the situation. And watch how that will change, in this case, the presentation that you give. Number 4, you have to replace the negative thoughts with realistic statements. You have to recognize that negative thoughts aren't completely true. They're not. To say that you're going to fail when you're giving a presentation in front of some potential clients, well, you're setting yourself for what? For failure. Or I'm not going to get that promotion if you work for somebody else. Or I'm not going to secure this deal. What if you replace it with a different phrase or a different thought? If I work hard and I keep investing in myself, I'm going to get promoted today. If I continue to work on this particular speech, I'm going to kill it today. If I continue to work on this particular project, then the client's going to be happy. You have to start to develop the positivity muscles inside of your head. In other words, just like you go to the gym and you work out and you do the curls for the girls, that's right, I know you, and you're curling or squatting or whatever it is that you're doing, what happens? Well, with consistency, your muscles get stronger. It's the same thing with your mind. If you put yourself in a place of positive thoughts and you continue to exercise those positive thoughts, those are eventually going to take over. Now, this one, I put it in here for humor, but it's really something to think about. But more in a way of scaring you away from it. Consider how bad it would be if your thoughts were actually true. Like, think of the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario. So you go into a job interview and you don't get the job. What's the worst thing that could happen? No, you don't get the job. You get rejected, but it sucks. Not the end of the world, though. What's going to happen if the client doesn't like your product and decides to go with someone else? Well, you're going to lose out on the client, but how many more clients are out there? See, when you're struggling with tough times or you're doubting your ability to succeed, you have to ask yourself, what would I say to someone else who had this problem? Well, write it down and start to look at these thoughts and tell yourself those kind, those wise, those encouraging words. And this kind of builds on to number 6 is ask yourself what advice, or number 5. Number 6 is ask yourself what advice you would give to a friend. Now think about this. If you're struggling right now, remove yourself from your situation right now and say, if this was John or Susie or Mary or whoever, and they were struggling with this right now, what would I tell them? How would I encourage them? How would I make them feel good? By removing yourself from your situation and now adding yourself back into it, but in a positive light, you start to understand, again, the positive thoughts, the positive words, the positive things that you can do and say that will change the way that you're thinking and put yourself in a position to what? To succeed. Last one, balance self-improvement with self-acceptance. What does this mean? Progress, not perfection. Life is about progress, not perfection. Sure, you want to do better. Sure, you want to close every deal. Sure, you want to make every customer happy. Sure, you want to make more money. Sure, you want to. But it's not always going to happen. So in the situations or the instances that it doesn't happen, cool, take a moment and say, what did I learn from this and how can I improve next time? And accept the fact that this is part of the process for you to get better. The process for you to be able to solve problems for more customers down the road. The process for you to become a more qualified candidate. Whatever it is for you in your situation, this is the process for you to go through. In other words, it's not around the obstacle, it's through the obstacle. But understand, progress, not perfection. Listen, your mind can be your best friend or your worst enemy. So it's important that we do what? We train it well. Every day I talk about one thing. I talk about winning the daily war. How is it that we win the daily war? That's right. It starts with the 6 inches of real estate you got in between those big ears of yours. If you're curious about how to do that, I've got some free tools for you. Go to winthedailywar.com. I've got something that you can download. It's called the Accelerated Performance Plan. It will help you get clear on where you're at, where you want to go, and the steps that you have to take to get there. I also got a free 30-day challenge, some assessments that you can take. There's different things for you to consume there. Why? Because I want to put you in a position where you can succeed. And that only happens with you taking action. All right. As always, remember, it's easier to stay ready than it is to get ready. We'll see you guys on the next one.